The following story is sleep-friendly and contains minimal sound effects. When I was 10, I stayed at a friend's house one October night. We loved horror movies, and the plan was to marathon as many as we felt like before going to sleep. We'd been buzzing about it since the start of school that day, and as the bell rang that Friday evening, we sprinted home to get ready. Little did we know, we'd be in a little horror film of our own before night's end. All had gone according to plan. We got through the first 2 Halloween films before calling it a night. We didn't have it in us to continue. We got the idea to set up a bed in my friend's shed and sleep there, for the novelty I suppose. He had 2 big old couches that we could push together and make a sizable fort for us both. It was a big shed with only a few sheets of clear corrugated perspex for a roof. The weather was mild, so we weren't worried about the cold. We stayed up and chatted about the movies for a while, helping ourselves to the snacks in the freezer before slowly succumbing to sleep after a long day of excitement. We drifted off listening to the trees and hedges blowing in the night wind, dappled shadows playing across the roof, murky with decades of rain and mold. The autumn leaves blown free by the wind almost sounded like rain as they gently impacted the plastic roofing. I was almost on the cusp of sleep when I was jerked awake by a heavier impact. The cold had set in unbeknownst to me as I drifted, and I sat upright, covered in goosebumps. There, in the cold and dark, I listened for the sound. Again I heard it, a heavy impact on the roof like something was dropped on it. I looked to my friend's ghostly outline in the dark. A ray of diffused moonlight showed his eyes wide with shock. He had heard it too. The moonlight revealed the source of the noise as we looked upwards, the unmistakable shadow of a figure, standing on the roof, mere feet above us. The hard shadows of 2 large boots, and a silhouette of a figure, hunched and breathing heavily as he lurked around the roof. Instinctively, we held our breaths. If we could hear his breathing, we prayed that he wouldn't hear our own. The shadow fidgeted with something over the side of the shed, grunting as he worked. I considered slowly moving to my friend so that I could whisper a plan to run for the house to him, but I lay there, frozen with fear. Would he hear the blanket stirring? Would he see my face through the plastic sheeting, a pale circle illuminated by stray moonlight in the shadows beneath his feet? Before I could think further, we heard the back door of the main house open. We all froze, the shadow and us. The shed door opened, and my friend's younger brother walked in. We silently prayed the shadow would not notice him. He crept to the freezer, not bothering to check if we were awake. We would surely have seemed asleep, so frozen with fear we were. His eyes wouldn't have adjusted to the dark enough to see our own eyes wide with fright and pleading that he go back inside. The freezer door opened, and light flooded the shed. We were laid down behind the back of the couches, so the light didn't reveal us. Not fully. We prayed that the shadow didn't see us. My friend's brother rooted through the freezer in vain for the snacks we had already eaten. The sloshing of iced goods and plastic bags were agonizingly loud as we wished he would give up and return indoors to safety. My blood froze as the face of the shadow pressed against the plastic, leering down into the shed at my friend's brother. I felt sick as he scanned the shed, feeling his shadowed eyes glance across us, and hoping the murk of the old plastic obscured us enough to remain undetected. I'll never forget the evil I felt as I lay there, watching the warped image of malicious eyes and teeth out in the dark and cold, watching us like a wolf might watch sheep. His malice pressed down on us, rooting us to our spots, fervently wishing he would leave. All the while, my friend's brother innocently looked for sweets, unaware of the predatory presence only a few feet above him. The brother gave up his search and began to walk back inside. Without a word, we leapt up and followed suit, as much to ensure his safety as it was to make our own escape. We slammed the back door and locked it. "What's go?" the younger brother began to ask. "No time, get into your room and stay there," my friend said, his duty as an older brother taking over in place of fear. We ran to the front door and ensured it was locked too, before checking all the windows. I peeled back the curtain and peeked through the kitchen window at the back of the house, hands shaking with adrenaline as I frantically scanned the yard. I saw the shadow hurriedly running out towards the front. A car pulled up and he jumped in, the car light illuminating a sort of tank or case in his hand. We kept watch a while longer, explaining to the brother what had happened. At some point we drifted to sleep, worn out by the events of the day. We investigated the roof that afternoon. Sure enough, we saw muddy footprints embedded in the old green mould where no one had set foot in years. We noticed the cap on my friend's oil tank had been left loose. The object the shadow carried made sense now. He had stolen oil in anticipation of the winter to come, or maybe to sell it. I'll never forget that leering face through the murky plastic roof, the way the mould and plastic and fear warped it until it seemed barely human. The suggestion of dark eyes and grinning yellow teeth. It almost seems at odds with the petty crime of fuel theft, but I can never forget the sense of malice I felt from that face. Well, who or whatever he is, he can keep the oil. I'm just glad we managed to get away from him unharmed